Thank you for listening to Sassy Optimist with Cindy Chapin. Well, howdy. I don't know why I did that. I'm not even in Texas. I'm in a very northeast state with my job. And I just realized that I have not done a podcast for a very long time. So anyway, hopefully this comes across. Okay, so I am just, one of the traits of that people have that I really, really struggle with and is people who are hypocrites. People who say one thing and do something else, and it's something that I'm actually very vocal about as far as that I have a lack of tolerance for that, and I really do struggle with dealing with people with that personality. And up where I'm at, and I'm teaching, and I'm going through these last few days, and I'm like, oh my gosh, am I being a hypocrite? So it's kind of like I'm sitting here this morning waiting for somebody to come out and get in the car so we can start a day. And I was just like, oh my gosh, maybe I should learn to give hypocrites a break. Maybe they don't mean to be hypocrites. So it's not that I'm going to stop not liking that, but I need to. So it's been a really good reality check for me the last couple days. And so what I mean by that is there's a lot of things that I teach, like besides teaching hair, I teach goal setting, I teach, a variety of things. And I'm working with a group that they're really struggling with morale because they took over this business and they had to change a bunch of things and kind of cut some things, and there's a lot of pushback. And I'm talking to them and coaching them, and I'm like, thinking I recently have gone through similar things with my job and have been extremely frustrated. So it doesn't take away from the fact that certain things are frustrating or challenging or maybe even just not right. But as I'm coaching them, I'm telling them things that I've actually said in previous podcasts about look at your level of elevation, where you're at. So for me, I'm at a certain level with my position or the salon that I'm working at. So you've got the stylists that are in the salon. You have the maybe assistant manager, maybe like a general manager. And then you have the franchisees or myself where I'm at as my level of employment with the company I work for versus where my boss is at. Very different levels. And I said that before in previous podcasts, but, I did a similar talk with them about that and said, that we don't know, because I'm talking to the staff and the management team because they're very, very, very upset. Very toxic environment right now. And I'm saying, not that it takes away from your concerns and you need to have these conversations, but I find if I pull myself back and think about, I don't know what they're going through, or even this, it's called Crucial Conversation. So if it's a book that you haven't read, or even the Audible version, so I've read the book, gone through some training, and I'm actually listening to the Audible book. I'm almost done. And it's a great book. It talks about the stories we tell ourselves. So I try to tell myself stories that will help me to be better tolerant and be careful of the stories that I tell myself, because it's really important that we realize there's a lot of different viewpoints, a lot of different perspectives. Until we get all the facts, we don't react to that. So, I teach these things, but I thought to myself, what, lately I have just reacted to things and gotten very upset. Or, there was a situation within the last, 24 hours where somebody really responded to me in a manner that I was, pretty upset about. And I really had to kind of pull myself back and think, I don't know what this person's going through. Again, it doesn't excuse the behavior, but at the same time, I need to be more tolerant. So that's why lately I've been like, oh my goodness, I've been a little bit of a hypocrite. I should say a little bit. I have been a hypocrite. So I'm learning that I can't be so quick to judge. And we do have to be cautious of the stories that we tell ourselves. And part of the Crucial Conversation says that we have to be careful. So for example, if I'm rude with somebody, and let's say I'm driving along, because this is where I'm a little aggressive, where when I'm driving, because I love to drive, and if somebody's they come roaring up on the side and there's a construction zone and there was a bunch of signs that said merge over, and they come roaring up on the side and then they try to push in, I will push forward because I'm like, how rude. Do they think they're more important than me? And so I'm justifying my behavior of not letting them in because I'm assuming that they're rude, they're self-centered, they think they're more important, which they might be. But I'm learning to say to myself, you know what? I don't know their circumstances. Maybe they have a pregnant person in the seat next to them, and that wife is pounding the husband on the arm, get to the hospital, get to the hospital. Or maybe they have a sick kid in the back, or maybe they're not from that area and they weren't paying attention and they realized at the last minute that everything was merging over. So I'm learning to try to tell myself those stories, even if they're not true, because then I have a better mindset and I look at that person differently. And until that person proves me otherwise, not that I'm going to meet the person in the car that cut me off, but whatever the situation is, or if it's somebody that you work with or somebody that you have a relationship with, just try to tell yourself a story until you get the facts, or allow them the opportunity to tell you the situation, so that you can have a conversation with them and kind of work through it. So anyway, I hope everybody has, I don't know when you're going to listen to this. I appreciate the handful of people that have been very loyal and listening to my podcast. I am, also just kind of really like trying to figure out where I'm going to go with this. I don't want to just put a podcast out there just to put a podcast out there. And I know that I will be led to do this more in the future, but I do appreciate those that are patient and maybe listening to my podcasts that are very sparingly put out there, and sharing that with anybody else. So I do want to thank you. Thank you for listening to Sassy Optimist with Cindy Chapin.